tells me we're live.
Wow, it already says we're live. That was super
cool.
fast.
We're being live streamed. Yay.
So they say, I'm going to wait just a minute before we introduce ourselves, make sure we're up and running. We'll see if anybody is here. This is always the tricky part.
Yes, here. We are up and running.
Let us know if you're here. We are in that awkward part of the video where we don't have any idea what's going on. So if you are watching, please drop us a comment so that we know you're watching. That would be super helpful. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and if you do happen to have a connection to homeschooling or a group. Now I'm there we go. There's Paulino. Yay. He says we're live. That's great news. Okay.
Okay. That's awesome. I don't see.
End awkward phase. All right. Welcome to the real video. Hi, everyone. My name is Martina Bex. Hey, guys. Paulino watching from his living room. And Mencia from Georgia. Welcome, welcome. So my name is Martina Bex. I am the original author of the Somos Curriculum, founder of the Comprehensible Classroom. And I am here today with the amazing
Christina Bacca. I teach Spanish, pretty much have taught Spanish everywhere. Public school, private school, university, and now homeschoolers.
And not just Spanish.
And not just Spanish. Yes, French as well. So if we're here to answer questions, and hopefully I can give you some information about using Somos within a educational situation that does not meet every day or meet on a public school schedule.
Awesome. I'm super excited because, we get a lot of questions. We get questions about this all the time. You know, what do I do? The lesson plans are written for classes that meet every day. So what do I do if I don't see my students every day? So hello to Carrie in New Zealand. Hey to Odile. You'll have to tell us, you have to write out a pronunciation for your name. I'm sorry. In Medford Public Online School. Awesome. Some nice non-traditional settings. But Christina, before we get started, there's a story that we have to share.
Is it
which I literally had blanked out of my mind, but this came up in the Somos group. Somebody brought it up recently. I don't remember how it came up, but we were
I think I know. It's the one where somebody brought up, I got these great new book racks from my librarian after the Scholastic sale.
So Christina and I were involved together in an attempted crime, as it turns out. So
make a good story.
Yeah, the last time that we saw each other, we were together at the Southern Council on Southern Council on Language Teaching School, whatever those acronyms are. And the exhibit hall we were like one of the last booths there. We were there with Garbanzo. Everybody had packed up, and what you'll find is that a lot of times in exhibit halls, it's super expensive for companies to ship their materials. And so sometimes at the end of a conference, they just leave materials behind. They're like, it's not worth it, ship stuff back. So when you go into an exhibit hall at the end of a conference, or if you happen to be there packing up your own booth, you'll see that there's just like stuff everywhere that people have left. So a certain publishing company had left behind all of these textbooks in their booth, and teachers had come through and they had grabbed them, just single teachers editions of textbooks, student copies, whatever. And, Christina and I aren't really interested in textbooks, but Christina saw
this amazing book display case.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was nice and sturdy. And I work in a place where I have to put my stuff away every day. I don't have a room. So all my books and stuff need a display case. Mm-hmm. So I said to Martina, hey, you think they left that there?
And I was like, totally. They told us. I was like, oh my gosh. And she's like, I really could use one for my classroom. I'm like, Christina, they left it here. It's just going to get thrown out. If no one takes it, there's all of these textbooks. There's all if no one takes it, it's just going to get thrown out. I was like, let's I'm like, I've got your back. She had driven there. I'm like, we've got this. So we like grab the bookcase, so excited. We bring it over to the garbanzo booth and we keep like finishing up packing our stuff. Then we see this guy and
he's laughing at us.
yeah.
And he's like, ladies, were you planning to take that?
And we're like, yeah, they just left it behind. We're like, they left it behind. We're like, this
cool
is so
thing.
like, she's so excited. She needed this for her classroom. Like, this is so great. He's dying.
Yeah. And he's like, well, that belongs to the hotel. And we're like, I didn't realize that.
Sorry. We're like, so sorry. Like, we did not mean to steal it at all. Like, we never, ever would have done that.
Yeah.
Oh, we were just being scrappy teachers. He's like, teachers, man.
I know.
Like,
and I'm like, well, you leave stuff around.
There's all this other stuff. So anyway, that's our story.
Yep.
That's totally off topic, but yeah, that's Christina and me. So so homeschool. So Christina, tell us a little bit about now you did homeschool your girls, but that's not what we're talking about. So we're not talking about how to use Somos.
You froze a little bit, so. All right, I think
this is me waiting to be unfrozen.
There you go. Okay, so now you are unfrozen.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, so yes, so I homeschooled my own kids. And when I started teaching Spanish with this homeschool group, there's like an umbrella group. And it's not like if you are in a homeschool group now, you know that there are some groups where they require the parents to participate. And so like say Martina wants to put her kids in the homeschool co-op, then she would have to offer something. Ours does not work that way. We are independent contractors. And so most of our teachers have experience in the field. And then it's a drop-off program. So
kids are coming to your homeschool group as though it were their like normal school. Are they coming every day or?
So they come twice a week. We meet Monday and Wednesday, and then we have a schedule of classes. So parents and students together can choose what classes they would like to be involved in. So some students may come for one class, some students may come for 4, depending on what the parents have decided that they want to do. So they're kind of like outsourcing some of their classes. And what I find is, you know, foreign language is a really popular one to outsource because even if the parents know another language, a lot of times that gets kind of brushed to the side in lieu of, oh, we have to do your math. We have to do your, you know, your language arts type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, so you are teaching what levels of Spanish then with your students?
So I teach Spanish levels 1 through 4, which I have been doing with this particular group for about the last 8 years. And kudos to Somos because the teacher before me was a textbook teacher. And I came in and started using CI using Somos. So when I started, they had about 28 kids in Spanish 1 through 3. And before the pandemic, so the pandemic has affected everything, right?
Sure.
My year that we were sent home for the pandemic, I had 80 Spanish
Holy
students.
cow.
Yeah. So
that's
CI
awesome.
is awesome. And I have kids come back and talk to me about it. I mean, we can add that, but one of the fun things about being in this sort of environment with smaller classes is you can really connect with your kids. Mm-hmm. Like even though you only see them twice a week, it's a smaller group, and I feel like they connect with their teachers a little bit more than in a bigger institutional situation.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, if you want to get your screen share ready,
Yeah.
we've got some slides to walk through, and it looks like we've got a few folks here watching that are in similar situations where they're seeing students live, either in person or on Zoom a couple days a week, and then assigning them work the other days. So,
All right.
all right, now we should be small and
My
the screen should be
share,
big.
That's perfect. Yay, it's working.
Yay.
All right. So this was just like a little bit of background information. So I'm going to kind of skip through to just some general information. And I'm going to start here. If you have questions, I think put them in the comments.
Yeah, drop them in the comments. We'll be monitoring.
In the comments, and we'll try to get to them and just try to give you the information that you need. The first thing is, if you are homeschooling, the important thing to know is whether you are a mom in a group where you're contributing to this group, whether you're acting as an independent contractor, whatever it is, you need to know the laws of your state. And that is super important because I'm teaching middle and high school kids.
Okay.
So the parents are looking for high school credit. And you want to make sure in your state that you know what the regulations are for giving a high school credit for a homeschool course.
And they're totally different from state to state.
Every single state is different.
So if you're maybe someone if you're already in a program like this, you probably already know, but if you're someone who is in the classroom right now and trying to think about what is an alternative teaching situation that I can pursue, look into, this would be something that you've got to do some research about what the program, if you would be starting a new program, about what your state requires.
For me, I do take attendance because it's a liability issue for us, because it's not in my home, we rent space. So we need to make sure we know where the students are at all times. However, it's not required for a homeschooler to take attendance in the state of Virginia, which is where I am. I believe, like in the state of Kentucky, you do have to take attendance.
Even if you're like a parent homeschooling?
Even if you're a parent homeschooling. And I think it's not, I don't know anybody that's ever turned it in, but it's, there's certain laws that you might have to follow. I think in California, you may have to be considered a private school in order to homeschool. And that might come with its own regulations. Yeah. So very important. You can probably find the information through a state homeschool advocacy group, or there is a national group called HSLDA, and they're the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And on their website, you can just click on your state and find what the requirements are. It's hslda.com. And so they're very helpful. The second thing to remember is homeschoolers don't have to meet the same requirements as public school students in the state. So for example, I teach Spanish, but a lot of parents will say, there's a schedule conflict. I have to have my student take economics because Virginia requires that all high school graduates take economics. It doesn't apply to homeschool. Okay. So
that can be something, if you have that knowledge, you can maybe advocate. Again, I'm just thinking about, especially people who are trying to get a program going, or who are like, I can't do another year teaching full-time in a big school, and you want to try to start something like this, advocating for yourself as a teacher, trying to find, maybe homeschooling families that you could teach Spanish to, knowing that information about your state can really help you get something up and running.
Right. And it also helps in terms of curriculum, because you do not have to go with a state's scope and sequence
Oh,
or,
interesting.
or their state standards. So
Probably. Disclaimer.
probably. Yes, that's the disclaimer. Most likely you don't have to, but that's why the very first thing was know your state laws. And then also know your demographic. My parents want a grade. So I give a semester and a final grade. I also communicate with the parents about whether the kids are doing homework, because I tell my parents, we meet 2 hours a week in person, that the kids should be doing about 2 hours of homework on the days that we don't meet. So 4 hours a week of Spanish, and we do that for 33 weeks.
Okay.
Now, other people might do 90 minutes once a week, something like that.
So there is an expectation for you. You aren't just the only Spanish that your kids are getting during the week isn't the time that they have with you. There is an expectation that they are doing something outside of class as well.
Absolutely. And Paulino, the name of the homeschool advocacy is HSLDA, and it is the Homeschool Legal Defense, I think it's association. It's right here in Virginia. It's a couple hours, like an hour and a half up the road from me. The other thing is that your pacing, again, it doesn't matter. And so many of the questions we get are, how many units should I cover? How much can I cover? And it's really not about how much can you cover. It's about the input that you're giving with the kids when they're in front of you. And then the other big question was, well, then what do I give them at home? Because I think most of us who, and you could probably put this in the chat, if you are working in a homeschool situation or a university model school situation, are you expected to give work on the days that the students don't see you? So can you put like yes in the chat if that's your situation?
That if you are expected to give students work when they're not with you, and maybe also a no if you're not.
And a no if you're not. Yeah.
Because those really are two different things. Like when you have less time or when they're working on things.
Oh, thank you, Paulino. It's .org, not .com.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, we've got another VA homeschool co-op 33-weeker. That's fun.
Edith,
That's a
where
cool
are
connection. You? Yes. Okay, cool. Looks like a good number of folks. So that's really important. So covering more units, it's not about covering units. And this is true whether you see your students
exactly
in twice a week in a homeschool group setting, or whether you see your students every day in a public school setting. It isn't about covering the units. It's about connecting with students through the curriculum. I was just thinking earlier today about when I did the staying after calls a couple of weeks ago with Rowena, and she takes it. Rowena, she's amazing. If you don't know her, you should know her. She's in this group, but she says every single day when she takes attendance, she asks each and every student that is in the room, are you here, in Spanish? So, ¿estás aquí? And they can respond like, yes, I'm here, or no, I'm not here. Meaning like, physically, maybe you're here, but like, are you here?
Yeah.
And if they say no, then she talks about, well, then where are you? So, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, man, that could take up so much time in your class. If you have 35 students and you have to ask all of them, are you here? You're never going to get through any curriculum. But the conversations that you're having as a result of that, when you have mastered that art of keeping your language comprehensible, that all counts for language acquisition. It doesn't matter. So same thing with homeschooling, when you just see your kids 2 days a week, It's not about covering curriculum. It's about, I loved how you said that. It's about what did you say? It was about the input that.
I don't know what I said.
I know. I know. That's a terrible question, Martina. I would not, if someone asked me that, I'm like, bah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
It's
but I wrote
about
it
the
down.
input.
I literally typed it. I said, it's not about how much you cover. It's about the input you're giving the kids when you're with them.
There we go.
What?
Right. And that's exactly it. So let me just show you a little bit about how I think of what I give my students, and then we can go back to different resources. So just real briefly, I see my kids twice a week. And so my day one, whether, mine is Monday and Wednesday, yours could be Tuesday, Thursday, yours could be Wednesday, whatever day of the week you see your kids. I start out with core vocabulary and I establish meaning in level 1. I'm not going to play around with only doing a gesture
in their first language.
In their first language, yeah. In L1. Did I not say L1?
You said level 1.
Oh.
I know what you meant.
I know what you, yeah. I also have the students keep a dictionary. And one of the main purposes of that is I'm expecting them to do work at home. And therefore, if they are not writing it down and don't have something to reference, then that can become a problem. Mm-hmm. We have pretty good communication, but you want to make sure that the kids will have access to those things. Some people put the core structures on Quizlet just because that's an easily accessible place to keep it. I do that many times. I don't recommend necessarily giving them long lists of words on Quizlet, but it's a good place to put reference information, and Quizlet will pronounce it for the kids. So that's a nice place if they've heard the words, but then when they're going back on their own, they're not quite sure how to pronounce it. They can, hit the audio button on Quizlet and hear how something's pronounced. But it's not meant to be a tool of input. It's a reference tool. I use a lot of TPR because TPR is total physical response. And if you have not used TPR, I would say contact me. I would love to talk to you about TPR. Because at the beginning of the year, I do a lot of TPR with a lot of the structures that I know are going to be coming up in Somos.
You got to tell us what total physical response is, just in case there's anyone watching that doesn't know. No, that's okay.
Response is basically you teach the kids establish meaning, and then you act out the verb. So if we are doing camina, then I model me walking to the door or wherever. And then I get Martina to come up with me and we do it together. And then we might walk slowly. And of course,
so you tell the students, hey, our new word for today is camina, and camina means walks. And then you're like, Martina, camina, and Martina.
Well, or what I'll do is I'll say, you're going to do it with me first.
Okay.
And so I'll say, Martina, can you come with me? And then side by side, and I have the words either on slides or on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper hanging up, anything that the kids can reference. And we camina. And then I might have.
Don't you mean we caminamos?
No. I mean, you can,
yeah.
But usually total physical response, you're going to use the third person singular. So using the he, she form, because that's normally the form that is acquired first or most easily. And if you do the third person, then as you get into stories, they've already got it. They're not going to notice the difference between a command and the third person singular. I had to get over that one. I was having, because when I learned how to do total physical response, it was all commands.
Mhm.
And I've been to some other training that said use third person singular with the kids. So I'll say, Martina, camina.
So you focus it on like descriptive stuff instead of like everybody.
Like get up and
Yeah.
do it. Right.
Mhm.
And then we'll add different things, walk slowly. So
Mhm.
we'll walk slowly. We always have a walk romantically.
Yeah, I was gonna say Karen Rowan. I always remember her doing the
Yes.
romantic on
So
the
there's
internet.
always a romantically. There's always a like en secreto.
Oh, that's a good one.
And they've got to kind of like, be
Yeah.
stealth or something.
Okay.
And
the point of all of this is to just kind of solidify the meaning of this word. When they hear these specific sounds, camina,
exactly.
they know what that means.
Right.
Okay.
And you're a French teacher, the pronunciation is the same. You're going to use
but you need pronouns in French and you don't
need
in
pronouns
Spanish,
in French.
So
I would probably still use third person.
yeah.
And then go ahead, Martina.
I was going to say, I wouldn't get too hung up on the verb form. I mean, like Christina said, if you want to give the commands, that's totally fine. The kids are going to hear that connection between the command and the third person narration. If you want to narrate what you're doing and use first person, that's totally fine. Like no matter what you do with most verbs, and at least in the languages that we have curriculum available for, the auditory connection, what you hear, there's a very strong connection between all of those forms. So you're usually not going to run into any problems. So I wouldn't let yourself get hung up on that. Use the words accurately. So don't say like yo camina. Don't say it incorrectly, but however you're choosing to use those verbs, if you're using them to narrate or if you're giving commands, it doesn't really matter what you do.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to expand total physical response.
That was funny.
In many different ways, using different verbs, using different descriptors, using there's something called the 3-ring circus where you can have many things going on at once. And there's lots of examples of how to do it. And again, that's just one thing that you can use.
Yeah, with objects, with prepositional phrases like walks with a coffee, camina con café, camina a la ventana, like walks to the window, walks with coffee, walks with do you have a dog? Walks, camina con garbanzo. This is my little
camina or con like garbanzo. walks like a baby.
Yeah,
that's always, I get the big football player guy to like crawl or
yeah, we're going to turn this into a session on TPR though. So the point of this is, so Christina,
so the point of this is one way to help cement those core structures in a short amount of time that we have when we're seeing our students. So establishing,
they're going to be going on their own.
Exactly. They're going to be going on their own, working on stuff. So you want to have as much impact. And impact comes from establishing the meaning. Doing something kinesthetic will also help because they'll remember, oh, what did I do when she said this? And that will help them remember a little bit. And then I use it as brain breaks all the time.
So TPR.
Yes. So I'm constantly having them getting up and whatever it might be and trying to reconfigure what it is. So then on the first day, after I've gotten my core vocabulary, I will either read a story, read something that's provided, or ask a story. Sometimes
Hold on, I'm going to ask you a question really quick. Well,
okay,
actually, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One was from the comments. So one was, do you have students keep the same dictionary and put all of the units vocabulary in it and build it as they go? Or do you have them like have one dictionary page for each new unit that they're referencing?
Okay. So what I do is I provide them with a composition notebook. I'm allowed to charge a materials fee. So I buy.
Christina's like $1,000.
Yeah, $1,000
No,
plus
just
pay.
kidding.
No. Yeah, these are golden composition notebooks. So I give them the composition notebook. We make a table of contents. And then every time I give them something, I tell them, write down, Los Pollitos. Los Pollitos is page 9.
Okay.
And then I have them take the last like 20 pages of the notebook and alphabetize it. One page is A, one page is B.
Okay.
And then they write the word in English under the appropriate letter. So camina, walk, would be under the W's.
Oh, which makes
Because
sense.
I want them to be able to access the words when they're home.
So if they're like, I don't remember what the word for walks was, they're not going to be like,
they're not going to be like, oh, I got to look
camina.
through all my pages to find it. I'm like, no, it's in there in English.
Yeah.
So they find walk, and then next to it is the Spanish word.
Okay.
So that again facilitates them having the tools to work on their own. Because if they don't have the tools, if they don't know how to do it, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So they have
and having that system. I mean, obviously a lot of kids have access to internet in some way. They can probably go online and look it up, but having a system that they know that they can count on that is really important. And Christina, you said you keep prefacing, you're like, this is what I do. And so just remember, everyone, like this goes for Christina talking about how she uses Somos with her homeschool group, and also for the curriculum as it's written. Just because I do something a certain way or Christina does, it doesn't mean that is the right way to do it. It means it's a way that's working for us or has worked for us, and you may find a different way that works for you.
Exactly. You could have the kids do their dictionary on index cards. Mm-hmm. And I would just make sure they have somewhere to keep them. Or
So yeah. So next question then is, you said after you do the TPR, you'll usually go to either reading a story or asking a story. Now, if you have the curriculum, there's practice sentences with every unit. Like it says introduce, that's part of introducing the vocabulary, is you like display a slide that has a sentence on it, and kids might whiteboard write down. Oh, it's that.
Okay, there you go. Are you unfrozen?
This is my unfreeze. Yeah. So you don't do that with the practice sentences.
No, I do.
Oh,
I consider that part of establishing meaning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's all part of my establishing meaning. I do the sentences. Sometimes what I do is I put my kids' names in. I edit the slides and I put my kids' names in.
So smart. Mm-hmm.
Or I might even, like, if I have pictures of the kids, because
Yeah.
I take pictures of my kids in class.
Oh my gosh, Christina, you just blew like a million minds, including like, hello. Yeah, that makes so much sense. You can just change the pictures, whatever pictures are there for the practice sentences. You can put in different pictures. You can put in different sentences. So what a great opportunity to personalize that and create that connection.
Yeah. And it's so fun because then, usually somebody in class gets associated with something.
Yeah.
And then we always bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
I also have little.
Hopefully not the boob bug.
Yeah, no.
There's like so many like infamous moments thanks to the Flex curriculum.
I have like stuffed animals.
Yeah.
So, well, this year I had Senor Broccoli.
Oh.
Senor Broccoli is actually a stuffed broccoli.
Yeah.
And that became a class mascot.
Not a VeggieTales. Is he the VeggieTales?
He's
broccoli,
not.
Or he's just
something I got like the
ambiguous
grocery
stuff.
Store
Broccoli
had a stuffed broccoli, a stuffed banana, and a stuffed carrot.
Because why not?
Because why not? And Senor Broccoli became a class mascot. And the kids would actually, so this is completely off topic, I'm sorry, but this would be fun for homeschoolers. They took home Senor Broccoli. And so on Wednesday, some kid would volunteer to take home Senor Broccoli, and they would take pictures of what Senor Broccoli did over the weekend.
That's awesome.
With them. So if they had a field trip, it's kind of like Flat Stanley.
Yeah.
But with our own mascot.
I love
and
it.
we were just talking about this at the end of the year. The kids loved it. And a couple years ago, I had a monkey,
Mhm.
and this boy's dad traveled a lot. So our monkey went to Egypt.
Oh my
Our
word.
monkey went to the pyramids.
Wow.
It was crazy. Our monkey was on a camel. Our monkey was in all these different places.
That's
And
so fun.
so it just, again, it brings that connection in, and the kids are excited.
Mhm.
And then, of course, it gives you more stuff to talk about.
Yep.
So we could spend a lot of time talking about, oh, look, is the monkey on the camel or under the camel?
Mhm.
It just lends itself to even making stories about the characters, whatnot.
So fun.
All right.
Sorry, yeah, I keep getting out.
No, absolutely. Because I'll skip things. So sometimes I will use the script in Somos or one of the stories provided, and
Maybe I am unfrozen. Woo, it worked.
Go.
Okay, there we go.
And
I'm always like, I don't know if I'm the one that's frozen or you. It's probably me.
And read it with the kids in class, because that, I think, helps cement it a little bit more. You can do it either way. I've had teachers say, oh, I like to read it first and then story ask after they're more comfortable. I do both. And again, it's your preference. What works with your demographic, how comfortable you are with story asking. If you're a little hesitant about it, then you could use one of the provided stories or the story builders in the Flex, and then story ask on the next day.
Which, by the way, Christina's niece helped write a majority of the story builders. So by then, she was my go-to story builder. By the end. So
So there's some, I have my favorites. And then you could do a write and discuss.
Tell us what that is.
So write and discuss, if you have story asked or just talked about the story, or if you spent the whole time just talking about your kids, whatever you did during class. The way I do it, and part of this is because of the pandemic, and I was on Zoom for a while, I will use slides and I will type right into a slide. And I will ask the kids, all right, well, who walked to the door today?
So, ¿quién caminó a la puerta? You're doing that in
exactly.
a target language.
And then they'll be like, oh, Martina. So then I'll write down either in the present or the past tense. You decide.
So like you could have done a story in the present tense, and then you're asking them to recall it using past tense, and you're writing it in past tense.
Right. And I'm telling them,
Like, Christina, what if you haven't taught the past tense?
Isn't that what I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
You're just using it naturally. Like, Martina walked romantically to the door with Senor Broccoli.
As I do.
As you do.
As I do.
And so we just type up what happened in class. And then when they go home, usually I have the students copy it with me.
Okay.
If we don't get through everything, I will finish typing it up and make that available to them. So then I'm going to go on to page 2, on to day 2.
So you're with your students for like an hour. An hour? Okay.
Yes.
So this is an hour class. So you're moving. I'm
moving pretty quickly, but you also have to remember, my largest class is 16.
Mm-hmm.
So generally in homeschool situations, we don't have 35 kids. Mm-hmm. And so we can move a little bit more quickly.
Yeah.
I tend not to have discipline problems. When the kids are in my class, they're in my class. They're not pulled out to see the guidance counselor. to go to band, to sports practice, whatever. So I have almost no interruptions whatsoever.
And you probably have a high level of parent support that if like a cell phone is becoming an issue or whatever, like the parents are.
Oh yeah,
But
we
you
jumped
don't
right
have-
on it.
yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have the same interruptions.
Mhm.
So the time is a little bit more
Optimized.
guarded and
Yeah.
organized. Yeah.
Anne asked if they write and discuss in their
Yes.
composition.
So I
notebook.
use the composition notebook as an interactive notebook. So we keep the table of contents, and then everything that we do goes in the notebook. Whether it's a campanada, whether it's a story, a write and discuss, any paper activity I give them. We've done the Thanksgiving, what I'm grateful for,
Oh, cool.
that Martina made up for me. And it's funny because in level 3.
Oh yeah, that was by request from you.
Yeah, it was by
Yeah,
request.
that's right. Yeah,
But
that's thanks to Christina.
in level 3, I wasn't on them as much because they're getting older. And so I wanted them to be comfortable figuring out their own organization. And one of the kids said to me, you know, when we were in levels 1 and 2, we did so many like crafty type thing, like we would draw more pictures of the stories, or the Thanksgiving ones, I would give them markers and they would all color it in.
Yeah.
And they were more on their own in level 3, and they kind of missed that. So I might have to bring that back even for them. So yes, the table of contents, it not only corresponds to the units, it corresponds per page. If you're familiar with bullet journaling, I don't know. Basically, it's a notebook with a table of contents. So if on page 10, there might be a campanada, there might be a quick little, I'm going to say a sentence, I want you to draw a picture for it. And then for page 10, it might say, unit 2, I don't know, illustrations, story illustrations, something like that. So that if I say to them, oh, remember when we drew pictures about, you know, our story with Senor Broccoli walking romantically to the door with Martina? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, that was on page 10. And they'll go back and find it. So it's
whatever they need to recall.
Right. But it has a table of contents.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And if anyone's looking for more information on interactive notebooks, our director of training, Alicia Cardenas, has written a lot of blog posts and I think has some videos available as well. We've done a summer fun club about interactive-ish notebooks that you can grab.
And I like the idea of having them write stuff down. I mean, I know we want to use less and less paper. So I tend to print things a little bit smaller, but I love having them create their notebook. So at the end of the year, they have this composition notebook that's filled with everything that we've done.
And one of the great things about teaching in a comprehension focused class, I mean, yeah, I guess I would assume anyone is, you know, it's not just like, oh, you know, these were my notes that I took in Spanish 4. Like I still have my grammar notes from my Spanish classes in high school and whatever, but it's also like these like stories that you created and they're notes that are personalized. So it's really like it's kind of like a yearbook, you know, by the end of the year.
It really is. And the kids, like I just had to say goodbye to my 4s that I've had for 4 years. And they were so nostalgic about talking about the characters that we had created and the adventures and all of it. So
that's awesome.
It's been really neat. So then when I don't see them, these might be some activities. I would not give all of these at once.
Okay, so this is like a menu of things that they could do. This is
a menu of things you could
on the day after you've seen them in class and they're supposed to be doing something from home on their own.
Exactly. So if we did a write and discuss, and if we didn't, I would type up the story, and we use Google Classroom to post things. So I could give them the story and I could ask them to read it and highlight the core structures. Another thing I can do is if it's 500 words or less, you can copy it and put it into Flipgrid. And Flipgrid will read it to them in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
And so you have to teach them like what button they need to press. But I can put my entire story in there, and then they can have it read to them in Spanish. I could
And
also,
you can make that, can you make that private for your?
yes,
Okay.
so that can be made, and that's what I'm counting on you for with copyright stuff.
Yeah.
Is yes, it is. I can make it private that only my students who I've invited into the Flipgrid classroom has access to it.
Yeah.
Like not even other classes that I
Yeah.
teach would have access to it.
Yeah, and this is so you know, this Christina's going to talk about Ed Puzzle as well, and you know, this always comes up. Technically, when something is copyrighted, you can't create any kind of a copy of it, audio or anything. If you have put it on a website that it's private, so just your students can see it, I'm like, no one will ever know. So technically you can't do that with copyright, but if it's private and you've done that appropriately, no one would know. So
yeah, and I think if we've made up our own story with the core structures,
yeah, that's fine. Anytime.
That's
And that's
okay.
another question. Yeah. All of our
Yes,
stories
okay.
are Creative Commons. Yeah. So
okay.
that's fine.
If you're using Flipgrid and you record yourself reading the story, you can ask processing questions, just like you would do in class. Of course, you don't have the kids in front of you, but you can ask the question, did Martina walk or crawl to the door?
So you read
Yeah.
a little bit of the story and then
Read
you
a little
ask
bit of
like
the
an
story,
either or
ask-
question
Right.
in the target language.
Right. And with Flipgrid, you can always put subtitles. So you can put the text below so they can read along with you. And then you can put the answers to the, like you can pause so that they can answer. And then you can put the answer up so that they can see that as well. You could also have them retell the story on Flipgrid in English.
Oh,
And
okay.
so here's our story.
So
This is what we
demonstrating their
talked
understanding.
about. What was your favorite part? Or can you retell it in English, just as more of a memory piece, what
Yeah.
happened?
Mhm.
Because at this point, they're not, you know, they're not going to be very good at output.
Yeah.
So
So the idea is you want them to have another exposure to whatever you had done in class the first day. So rereading a story and then showing and then giving them a task that is going to focus on understanding.
exactly.
So by having them retell it in English, when they are rereading it, they're forced to not just like let the words, you know, scan by their
exactly.
eyes. They have to process the meaning.
Exactly. And you could do this on paper as well. You could type it up and then type up comprehension questions. So they could do it just as a reading activity. They could do it as an auditory activity. Martina has some great storyboard, different graphic organizer templates that are awesome, where they could either illustrate the story. That's one of my favorite things, because you always have artists.
Yeah.
And you always have the kid that does the stick figures. And then you have the one that
you have Andrea.
Yeah.
Her daughter has done a lot of the artwork for a lot of the different TPRS like the readers from Fluency Matters and things. Her daughter, Andrea, is an amazing artist.
Yes. So thank you. But yeah, so you have kids like her that just get into drawing the pictures in love, illustrating that. You could also use Kahoot. Now, Kahoot and Quizlet cost something. Flipgrid is free. So, but you could have processing questions on Quizlet. and have them do the question paired up to the answer. You could do the same thing with Kahoot. You just have to type it in for that. But so day 2 for me is normally a task that is going to cement understanding, review the student's understanding at home. And usually I try to keep it to 1 or 2 simple tasks because we only have 1 day between seeing our students in person. And so I don't want to give them too much or anything that I think they can't do on their own.
Yeah. And I think like what you said, like simple tasks. So these it should feel easy. Like that, you know, this, we've really I really had to rethink this idea of like, if it's meaningful, it has to feel like work. Like we want them to be able to read these stories and understand them with ease. And so when they come back to it on this next day, like just read it again and like, oh yes, here's the language just floating through my head. Like just keep it fresh in their minds and keep it easy.
Exactly. Carrie, if you see your students 2 days in a row, then probably what I would do is give them as much input as possible. I'll go on to my next day in person, but I would do that back to back and then give them something easy to do. I would scaffold what my homework is. So I would have an easy homework and then maybe they would have to continue doing something that was a little bit more difficult. On the next day, I would go back to my story, or if this is my story asking day, my kids like creating characters. So I use the 1-word image, which Martina has a set of slides that help the students focus on, is the character going to be a person, or maybe it's an animal, or we like food in my class. So we frequently have talking pizzas, talking tacos. This year we had a talking potato. I don't know. This class just really liked food. So we create a character. The slides guide you in creating that character. Color, age, how many eyes does it have?
So that's the 1-word image imagination lab, and you don't need to use that. You can create them without it, but that if you're new to the strategy of creating a character, that 1-word image imagination lab we have available in Spanish and French is a really good
and
tool.
And that's great. And the kids love to do it because they what happens is usually Los Pollitos from the first unit of Somos, and then any character we create comes up continually through the year. And so we tend to get this whole family of characters by the end of the year. If you did not do write and discuss, you can do write and discuss. But on this 3rd day, I'm concentrating. So my 2nd day in person, the 3rd day that the students have been interacting, I'm concentrating on cementing that input, cementing the core structures. So I could do a blind retell where the students, again, this is in the Somos curriculum. So if you don't know what it is, basically one student has the story, the other student is trying to tell the story, and the first student acts as a coach. And I role model it for them. I try to explain to them that they're being a coach. They're not trying to correct per se. So they're not trying to go, nope, you missed that. You forgot that word. No, you're trying to say, hey, you almost got it. Yeah, it's Camina, when they can't remember what it is. And then we're cementing whatever the input is. If we go on to now, if you've already done your stories and they've got the core structures, then you might want to be going on to another aspect of the curriculum. So there might be a cultural reading. that you're going to do together. Any other part of the curriculum that is input based, for me, would just be the next step. So after we've done our story, then whatever the next step in the curriculum is, whether it's culture or more activities or whatnot. And then at home, I'm going to skip 4 and 5 and just kind of go to the resources that you could use. We talked about Flipgrid. It's free. The Collab Drive. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah. Teachers
have created things and stories. And Martina, I love the pictures. The Picto, what are they called?
Oh, the Picto tool things. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, great.
I get so much mileage out of those. You can use, there's those available. You can use Jamboard. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jamboard, but when I was online, and if you're teaching online, Jamboard is great. Jamboard is great for putting things in order, for drawing, for even if you're story asking, they can put their stuff on Jamboard. So and again, Jamboard is free. So that's definitely helpful. Garbanzo. Garbanzo is probably the best thing you could do with your students when you don't see them in person, because it aligns, of course, perfectly with Somos. So I know before Garbanzo was developed, I was like, oh, we're working on this and I want to give them some more input. Do I record it? Do I ask my husband to record it? Do I try to find a YouTube video so they can listen to something? And it was very hard to do. Garbanzo takes care of all of that.
And one question, I know you have this on the next slide, Christina, but a lot of homeschool teachers will ask us, well, is there any kind of a pricing difference for me who only has 20 students or whatever it is, this very small number of students? And unfortunately, every different, I think you froze, or I froze.
I don't know.
Oh, there we go. We're unfrozen. So unfortunately, like even things that seem as simple as like charging different, making different pricing options available, all of those things have to be developed separately. So we just don't have the development time or money to put into that. So what we're saying is we're not making any promises, but if you email us and you say, I'm a homeschool teacher, I only have X number of students, is there anything, any pricing break that you can give me? We may be able to like upgrade your subscription for you, like give you upgrade your standard subscription to premium. But it's going to totally depend on the specific scenario. So there may be something that we can do to help if you have a very small number of students.
And the thing to remember as well, my program has blossomed. And so you may want to, and I'm allowed to ask for a materials fee to help cover the fee for some of these things. So you might want to look into that. Depending on maybe your program is getting bigger, you might be able to sustain that with having a fee from the students or working it into whatever the fee for the class is. Quizlet, we've talked about. Kahoot, we've talked about. And Textivate is one more source that you can use for games, for reading, for chunks of reading, fill in the blank. It's got a lot of really good literacy things that you can do. But again, it costs. Yeah. So my priority would be Garbanzo first, and then one of these other things afterwards. Yeah. And the other thing I'm going to say too is I also see teachers saying, oh, I've seen this curriculum or that curriculum or novels, and I do novels with my kids. If you're new to Somos or new to teaching in this situation, just do Somos. Don't add. because you'll
Stick to
drive
one thing.
yourself crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, and you're gonna want to pull this and pull that and whatever. It's best to just stick to what there is first, and then you could do a novel, but be aware that's like a whole nother hour's worth of discussion. How do you do a novel when you only see your kids twice a week? You really can't do much else.
Yeah. And Christina, one thing that just came to mind, most of these other options are tech-based, and some homeschool co-ops might only be wanting you to do like not technology things. Like I know that I'm homeschooling my kids right now, and we belong to a co-op that doesn't have language as part of it, but there's supposed to be no technology as part of our homeschool deal. So the flex packets,
Yes.
The print packets from the flex curriculum are a really good option for that. So every unit in the flex version of the curriculum has like a 12 to 15 page print packet that you could give students for them to be working on at home during the week.
And that's awesome too. I use the flex as well, because then you also have more stories, more reading. And if you can get the students reading, even if you cannot afford Garbanzo, it's definitely worth it. And I will also say, you're not going to get through all 26 units of Somos 1 in 1 year, probably not even in 2 years. You could probably have it be for like 3 years. So you could buy what you need in chunks. So you could buy units. How is it packaged, Martina? Is it 1 through 5?
Oh yeah. I think it's 1 through 5, 6 through 10, something like that.
Yeah.
So just getting a smaller.
So to make it more affordable for you as the teacher, you could buy them in smaller units. And then that way you don't have a larger outlay of money for the curriculum. And then if you were able to, you could do Garbanzo along with it. But again, if you can't, get Flex, get the paper copies, print them, put them in the interactive notebook. There is more than enough material for you to have for your students when you don't see them face to face.
So let's see, just to summarize, and then we'll wrap up. If you're seeing your students 1 day a week, like priority is make sure everyone knows what the most important words for the unit mean, so that as they see them throughout the week, they're going to know. Have them write it down somewhere, have it in a place where they can easily access it to reference during the week, and then get them a flood of input. It sounds like you prioritize connecting things like story asking, like creating an image together, things like that. And then during the week, looking for opportunities for them to reread and to listen to similar things is the best use. And then and then
games. We play games. We do all your games.
And reiterating the thing that you said at the very beginning, that it isn't about covering. Like, it's okay if it takes you a month to get through a unit. That's okay. Don't feel like you're behind, because as long as you're maximizing that time with your students, connecting with them, playing games with them, asking stories, like all input is good input for them. Like, that's all helping them to build that mental representation of language. It's not like they're missing out if you've spent 2 hours with them speaking in Spanish and they've understood the whole thing, but you haven't talked about 12 different topics. You can talk about one topic or the same story over and over and over again. That's okay.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so well, I was going to do questions, but it's late and I have kids who didn't fall asleep. So I'm going to go help them out. Christina, what's the best way to contact you?
So you can message me through the Facebook page. You can email me, ChristinaBacca@gmail.com. So it's my name @gmail. If you private message me through the page, I'm a mentor on the Somos page, so I will get your message, or if you just post something and tell me you're PMing me, I'll look for it. Yeah, and if you have questions, you can, put them up to be posted, or PM me and we'll talk about it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Christina. It was good to talk to
Well,
you
thanks,
as
Martina.
always.
And no book racks were stolen in the making of this video.
No book racks are stolen. Maybe at IFLT though, you never know. Both
Maybe.
Christina and I are going to be at IFLT this summer, and we would love to see some of you there. I think there's like 30 days left to register.
Yeah,
it's a conference in Michigan. Yeah, so have a great evening, and anything that's specific to your scenario, even if you're listening to what Christina says and you're like, well, that's not my scenario, that wouldn't work. That's what our mentors are here for. Christina, Aaron, and Heather, they would love to help you talk through those situations. Just drop a comment in and we will get you the support you need.
Exactly. Thank you.
Have a great night.